Good morning, it's Michael Gray with rnhealthcoaching.com. The following excerpt is going to be a part of my 4x4x48 David Goggins challenge. Basically, it's 4 miles every 4 hours times 48 hours. I started this on 4 p.m. on Good Friday and I ended on Easter Sunday 2020. If you can't do 4 miles, then you do 40 minutes or more of some type of exertional activity, whatever it is that you feel that you can tolerate for that amount of time every 4 hours. And it's actually quite challenging. One of my other biggest influencers is Fridman, who is an MIT physicist and has the podcast AI podcast, which is artificial intelligence. And he took this challenge from David Goggins, as well as in between each of the iterations, he did a gratitude journal. So basically that's what I did is on between each 4 hour interval, I did some sort of a distinct gratitude and made a video on it. So I have the full video, which is quite lengthy, and then I also have these excerpt videos between each one, which is what the following is. And thank you. Have a good day, and mend yourself, move, educate, nourish, decompress, and enjoy this lockdown. All right, this is the third round. Put my legs up and get comfortable here for a second. Because my right lateral knee here on the external area and also same place on my heel is a bit tweaked right now. So what does that mean? Well, it's about 1 o'clock in the morning on Saturday morning. This is the third cycle of 4 miles. And I did take about a 2-hour nap from around 10:30 to 12:30 and had a little difficulty getting out of bed, but I got there thanks to Jocko Willink and Wes Watson saying, just get up. Once that idea gets into your head that it's time to get up, you can't allow that second version in your mind to say it's okay to just sleep for a little while longer. You just need to get up. It goes back to what we were talking about a little bit before about just making that person that's trying to achieve the goals have a little bit stronger voice than the other one. It may come to a point in this challenge where instead of running from 40 minutes to an hour every 4 hours, I may be on the treadmill, which is what I'm doing right now at 1 in the morning. Or it may get to the point where I'm on the bicycle. It may get to the point where I'm on the bicycle trainer. It may get to the point where I'm strictly just walking instead of walk jogging and walk running. It may get to the point where I'm crawling. It may get to the point where I'm just doing some static exercises for an hour every 4 hours. The goal here is to get through the emotional difficulty, the emotional journey of this 48 hours, not necessarily the 48 miles. And that's what David Goggins recommends on his video. Just do something for 40 minutes every 4 hours and join him. So that's what I'm doing. Let me turn this off real quick. All right, so with this being difficult and this being the emotional gratitude, we can talk about that very distinctly because this is quite emotionally difficult to get up this morning. On a scale of 0 to 10, it's probably, I don't know, a 5 or a 6. So it could have been worse. So emotionally, if you have anxiety, if you have depression, if you have difficulty with willpower, these types of things, it's a learning process. I think that it's intrinsic to some people, but for most people, it's not. And doing these types of things, this is what builds emotional tolerance, emotional strength, emotional discipline. Um, some of the other things, just the idea of journaling, of meditation, of presence and gratitude, is an emotionally stabilizing routine. Having the awareness of, I think that's why I came up with Press If Happy. I was in the middle of nursing school, the middle of 9/11, the middle of divorce, and uh, I needed to come up with something that would help me emotionally, because of all of the things in my life emotionally that it was the most difficult. Uh, so that's why I came up with Press If Happy. I basically was just eating Mexican food and had a napkin and was just trying to think of all of the things to have gratitude for and all of the different areas of your life that were important. And there was probably a list of 30 or 40 things, and I consolidated them down to 7, which was physical, relational, emotional, social, spiritual, intellectual, and financial. And the idea of maybe like jelly bellies or jelly beans. And just because you may like one jelly bean more than other jelly beans, the ones that you just hate, you don't have to eat, you don't have to have in your life. Uh, but you should have some variety. You should have some diversification. You shouldn't put all of your eggs in one basket, and you shouldn't have only one jelly bean. So, for instance, if you're madly in love with someone and you put all of your energy and all of your effort and all of your thought and all of your behavior into just trying to keep that one person, and you're not working on yourself, and you're not working on your external relationships and your own personal responsibilities of finance and intellect and maintaining your own body and these types of things, when that relationship fails, and it's not if it fails, it's when it fails, because uh, it will if you're not a well-rounded person. And uh, you're going to be screwed, so you have to have these other things to fall back on. You have to have these other concepts of gratitude and value in your life. uh, and then also, right now with this coronavirus, everyone is having some emotional turmoil, emotional flux, emotional challenges, and we're all being tested. And the tools that you use, just like I was saying, of having awareness of all of the good things that's going on in your life right now, there are also other emotional tools that you can use that I learned. Um, and basically, this is a form of cognitive behavioral therapy, which is called REBT, which is Rational Emotive Behavioral Therapy. Most of the time, if you're having anxiety, depression, worry, fear, guilt, remorse, any of these negatively connotative emotions, they're either indicators or litmus tests that something's going wrong in your life. You're not thinking about things right, or you're not behaving right, or maybe just things aren't going right. Uh, but it's possible that everything is fine and you're just thinking about things the wrong way. You're thinking about things irrationally. And the stories that we tell ourselves, and again, if we have some type of at minimal, a duplicity in our head, in our action, we may tell ourselves one thing at 10 in the morning, and we may act differently at 3 in the afternoon. And then at 10 o'clock, you're in bed feeling guilty that the thing that you told yourself at 10 in the morning didn't occur, and you did quite the opposite at 3 in the afternoon. And this is kind of that dual role of, the challenge that we have. Everyone has a different level of this challenge. And this is why we have to acquire these tools. They They don't just come automatically in most cases. Um, and Albert Ellis in Rational Emotive Behavioral Therapy, REBT, he gives us a very basic guideline on tools that I use every day. And I learned this in therapy. And the basic is we have certain beliefs. Certain things happen, actuators. Then we have beliefs because of those things that happen, the actuators that happen, and then there's a consequence. So an example of that is that the actuator is coronavirus. The belief could be that we're telling ourselves that I can't stand being at home, I can't stand being unemployed, I can't stand being broke, I can't stand the thought of getting this virus. If it happens, it's going to be the most awful thing. And I must not get this virus. I must not be in this situation. I must find a way out. And there are some truths to those statements, but they're not all 100% truth. And some of the story that we may tell ourselves within each of those sentences is a little bit irrational. So if we're having overwhelming fear or anxiety or depression, the first place that we need to look is, are our stories rational, logical stories? And if not, how can we correct those stories? And the three basic places to look are masturbations, that's I must. I can't stand it, itis, I can't stand it. Or awfulizing, meaning that something is 100% awful. So an example would be if your spouse left you, if your spouse cheated on you. Would that be 100% awful? It might be 80% awful. It might be 90% awful. It might be 98% awful. But it's more than likely that after the storm settles and the cards fall where they may, even if there's a divorce, even if there's a bankruptcy, even if she slept with your best friend and you choose to never speak to him again, it's not 100% awful. It's some degree of awful, but it's not 100%. It's not going to kill you unless you kill yourself. So if you look at all of the other things in your life, your physical being, your potential for other social relationships, your potential to increase your own intelligence, financial position, your closeness with God, all of these things can be worked on and improved on so that at least there's some light at the end of the rainbow and there's some good that comes out of it. It's an opportunity for you to grow. So it's not 100% awful, which means that you can stand it. So to tell yourself and have the thought in your head, I can't stand it, is an irrational thought. If you had two roads to go down, you may choose the road that you don't have to deal with that pain and you don't have to deal with that circumstance. And that might not be the best road when it's all said and done. Maybe your partner was a bad spouse. Maybe it was time for you to move on. Maybe it has nothing to do with you, and there were things that your spouse had to learn and figure out and go through. And you're just kind of, unfortunately, since you're attached to that person, you're having to deal with the consequences of that. Uh, Maybe you were not the best mate, and they were just monkey branching up and found someone that was a better provider and that had time to give them the attention that they need. I mean, who knows? It could be a lot of things. And if you cared about that person, maybe that was the best thing for that person. And maybe the best thing for you to do is to let them go and for you to go work on yourself. So, I mean, there's so many different considerations, and every instance is so unique. This coronavirus is unique. And there's nothing saying that things must be a certain way. It's quite the opposite. Uh, so you can't, you know, these irrational people are the ones saying I must be with you, I can't be without you. So people that kill their spouse that threatens divorce and then they kill themselves. That's the epitome of irrational thought. So the other end of that would be as though your spouse, your mate, your best friend is in an open hand. And if they choose to walk away, then you allow that. When they are in this position, they're more prone to stay because they're not feeling constricted, contracted, and forced into staying. They know that they're there on their own volition. And this is why a lot of times when people that are in relationships that are like this, one person's holding on to the other so tightly that they can't breathe, that when there's divorce, when there's separation, when there's a going apart, and they come back together, they feel the pressure valve release. They feel more in this position, and they know that they're walking back and that they're here because they choose to be, not because they have to be. And this is why separation and some time apart oftentimes is not the bad thing. So I recommend one book by Albert Ellis called How to Make Yourself Happy and Remarkably Less Disturbable. And it's on Amazon. It's like $13. You could probably find a used version of it on eBay for 99 cents. And that book will outline some of these things that we're speaking about now. All right, well, I'll see you at 4 a.m. Thanks for joining.